The American democracy. One of the few great results of rebellion in history. Held by both the rich and the poor, American government is known as one of the greatest experiments of all time. The American Revolution was a big deal. It was the first time a ragtag band of rebels had stood up to a major world power. It was the first time they had got organized. It was the first time, really in history, that the little guy had a shot. The revolution, like American government, was a revolution of the people, by the people, and for the people. But while the American Revolution was a big deal, the biggest triumph was really American democracy. American democracy, American government, even in our modern day, has endured the test of time, has been the first and only system to successfully run a society without using any form of tyranny. American government was based on two primary ideas. The idea of a social contract, which was an idea formulated in the Enlightenment by philosopher John Locke, and the idea of democracy and republicanism. Essentially, American government was a crossroads of Greek democracy, Roman republicanism, and the Enlightenment. The first document that really expressed the sentiments of American government was the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence, along with declaring independence from Britain, explained why governments exist and what they're designed to do. It explained, quote, "All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." Unquote. While it does not legally mean anything, the Declaration of Independence set the stage for what eventually became the American Republic we know today. The Declaration of Independence was written in 1776 and signed on July 4th, 1776. But it was over 10 years before any of the ideas in it were actually used legally in the Constitution. The Constitution was ratified along with the first 10 amendments, which we know as the Bill of Rights, in 1789. Both the Constitution and the Bill of Rights set parameters for how government in America is to operate and which rights are to be protected and how. Even though the Revolutionary War ended in 1781, the final draft of the Constitution wasn't ratified by the states until 1789. For a long time period in between, the only federal legal document was the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation set extremely loose standards for states in the Union. There wasn't even a national currency. There were so few laws that the Union was falling apart and the rights of the people weren't being protected. The deregulation, the extreme form of free market capitalism being practiced in America, was ruining the economies of the states. Inflation was severe in some states, while in others currency was scarce. The people being affected most were poor farmers that could barely afford, if at all, to buy food. These were the same farmers that led the American Revolution, the same ones that made up the American militia. Naturally, they were angry. It led to uprisings like Shays' Rebellion, which was a rebellion led by farmer Daniel Shay, where farmers demanded that the government lower taxes on the poor. It was eventually crushed, but it made a significant impact on the developing nation. Events like Shays' Rebellion was what led to the creation of the Constitution. The Constitution outlined our modern government, a tripartite government, meaning three parts. These three parts, the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, all have limited amounts of power. The Founding Fathers used a checks and balances system, where each branch can check the power of another branch to balance the power among all three of the branches. Balances, however, would be practically useless if all three branches of government were controlled by tyrants. The biggest check on our government is the check of the people on the government, the right to vote. That's the greatest triumph of America. This right wasn't enforced for a long time, but it has, well, within the past century. But it's really an amazing thing that Americans even have the right to vote, as George Washington, the first president of the United States, had the opportunity to establish a monarchy in America. Fortunately, he rejected the opportunity and established democracy. This selfless sacrifice of power, which was what made Washington a true American and what made American democracy last. American government is truly innovative in that it was the first government to last without falling victim to despotism. It's a free nation that not only impacted America by, well, creating it, being it, but also impacting the rest of the world. Hundreds of governments across the world, including that of Britain, have modeled their governments after the government of the United States. Without America, who is to say that society would not have crumbled under the totalitarian regimes of various monarchies across the world? Who is to say that without America, democracy would have ever gotten a chance in the world? It is only because of the American Revolution, only because of American government, that we are safely here today. It's debatable that America is the biggest innovation in the history of mankind. I mean, no other event or idea, except for perhaps really Christianity, has influenced the world the way American democracy has. Not only did the American Revolution create America, it also launched the start of the spread of democracy throughout the world. American government is truly the greatest, most influential thing to ever happen to the world, and hundreds of democracies exist today to prove it.
Don't you know it's gonna be alright? You know it's gonna be alright. You know it's gonna be alright. Oh, well, you know, you better free your mind instead. But if you go carrying pictures of Chairman Mao, you ain't gonna make it with anyone anyhow.